Stand by. Oh, what's up, smarty people? It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you could have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Are you not entertained? Let me entertain you. Today, let's see. Oh, before I say today on the program, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, 2 more Memphis officers relieved of duty over Tyre Nichols' death. The Memphis, Tennessee Police Department announced Monday that the number of officers relieved of duty has risen to 7 in connection with the death of Tyre Nichols, a 29-year-old black motorist who died 3 days after several officers, also black, beat him during a traffic stop. 5 fired officers have been charged with second-degree murder and other crimes. A police spokesperson told the Commercial Appeal newspaper that another officer, Preston Hemphill, had been placed on leave since the start of an investigation into the January 7th incident. The 7th officer was not immediately identified. The Memphis Fire Department said Monday it fired 3 employees for failing to do an, quote, adequate patient assessment, end quote, on Nichols. This is according to the Commercial Appeal. Number 2, Biden to end COVID national emergencies in May. President Biden on Monday informed Congress that he would end the coronavirus national and public health emergency declarations when they expire in May. The move comes 3 years after then President Donald Trump's administration first declared the public health emergency. The change signaled that federal officers believe the COVID-19 pandemic has shifted into a more manageable, less deadly phase. The pandemic has killed more than 1.1 million Americans. About 500 deaths are still blamed on the virus every day in the United States, about twice the daily toll of a bad flu season. House Republicans are planning a vote proposing to halt the emergencies immediately. But the White House said an abrupt end would, quote, create wide-ranging chaos and uncertainty throughout the healthcare system, end quote. This is according to the Associated Press and the New York Times. Number 3, prosecutor starts presenting grand jury evidence on Trump's Stormy Daniels hush money. The Office of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg started presenting evidence Monday to a grand jury regarding former President Donald Trump's role in paying alleged hush money to porn star Stormy Daniels. Multiple news outlets reported Monday. Daniels said during Trump's 2016 presidential campaign that she had an affair with him in 2006. Michael Cohen, then Trump's personal lawyer and fixer, paid Daniels $130,000 to keep quiet. Cohen pleaded guilty in 2018, to federal charges related to the arrangement. Trump has denied offering the payoff for or having an affair with Daniels. Bragg is reviving the case started by his predecessor after delaying it to focus on potential crimes tied to the valuation of corporate assets by Trump's company. This is according to the New York Times and the Washington Post. Number 4, 24 Senate Republicans signed letter opposing raising debt limit without cuts. 24 Senate Republicans, nearly half the GOP conference, has signed a letter expressing, quote, outright opposition, end quote, to any effort to raise the debt limit that isn't linked to spending cuts. The letters, led by conservative Senators Mike Lee, Republican Utah, and Ted Budd, Republican North Carolina, said any deal must include, quote, real structural spending reform that reduces deficit spending and brings fiscal sanity back to Washington, end quote. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Republican California, says he is meeting with President Biden on Wednesday to discuss the debt limit. Ben Harris, the Treasury Department's Assistant Secretary for Economic Policy, warned that, quote, just the threat that the U.S. government might fail to meet its obligations may cause severe harm to the economy, end quote. This is according to The Hill and the Associated Press. Number 5, death toll in Pakistan suicide bombing rises to at least 90. A suicide bombing killed at least 90 people, mostly police officers, at a crowded mosque in Peshawar in northwest Pakistan on Monday. At least 170 others were wounded in the attack, which occurred when at least 260 people were in the mosque inside a fortified, quote, red zone, end quote, compound that houses police and counterterrorism offices. Authorities said the bomber appeared to have detonated his explosives in the first row of the prayer hall. They did not know how he got into the area, which is protected with a series of checkpoints. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the bombing. Islamist militants are active in the area and have launched other attacks targeting police. This is according to Reuters. Number 6, Comer calls for reform in oversight of classified documents. House Oversight Chair James Comer, Republican Kentucky, said Monday that he planned to work with the committee's top Democrat, Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat Maryland, to come up with a proposal to reform the handling of classified documents in the wake of the discoveries of secret materials at the homes of former President Trump, President Biden, and former Vice President Mike Pence. Quote, we have to reform the way that documents are boxed up when they leave the president and the vice president's office. Comer said Monday at an event at the National Press Club, citing the need for congressional action to revamp requirements for handling the material. Quote, somebody needs to oversee all the documents that are going into boxes to make sure they're not classified, end quote. This is according to Axios. Number 7, U.S. near deal on expanded access to Philippines bases. The U.S. military is close to securing expanded access to strategically important military bases in the Philippines as Washington seeks to strengthen alliances in Asia to deter China. The Washington Post reported Monday, citing U.S. and Philippine officials. The expansion includes increased access to 2 bases on the northern island of Luzon, which would enhance U.S. forces' ability to launch operations in response to any future conflict in Taiwan or the South China Sea, according to the Post. The bases would also help with rapid reactions to natural disasters. A Philippine defense official confirmed that a deal had, quote, more or less, end quote, been settled. The deal is expected to be formalized when Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin meets in Manila with his counterpart as soon as this week. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 8, Laverne and Shirley star Cindy Williams dies at 75. Actress Cindy Williams, who starred as Shirley Feeney in the classic sitcom Laverne and Shirley, died Wednesday in Los Angeles following a brief illness. Her family said Monday she was 75. Williams, who grew up in Van Nuys, California, studied at the Actors Studio alongside Sally Field and Robert De Niro. She worked in theater before transitioning into movies and television, starring in American Graffiti and The Conversation, and lost the Star Wars role of Princess Leia to Carrie Fisher. While working on a prospective TV spoof with her friend Penny Marshall, Marshall's brother Gary asked them to guest star on his series Happy Days. This led to the spinoff Laverne and Shirley, which ran from 1976 to 1983. And on my note, I don't vote-o do-do. I miss that show. I like that show. This is according to the Los Angeles Times. Number 9, Trump sues Bob Woodward over interview recordings release. Lawyers for former President Donald Trump on Monday filed a lawsuit against Washington Post journalist Bob Woodward and the publisher of his book, Rage, for releasing recordings of Woodward's 2019 and 2020 interviews with Trump. The suit against Woodward, publisher Simon & Schuster, and the publisher's parent company, Paramount Global, argues that the former president never agreed to allow the recordings to be made public, saying they were, quote, for the sole purpose of a book, end quote, with no request to include the tapes in an audiobook. The lawsuit accuses Woodward and the publisher of unfairly profiting from the audio and requests $50 million in damages based on the assumption of 2 million audiobook sales at $24.99 per download. This is according to Bloomberg. Number 10, Hockey Hall of Famer Bobby Hull dies at 84. Legendary hockey player Bobby Hull, whose showmanship made him one of the most popular hockey stars ever, has died. His former team, the Chicago Blackhawks, announced Monday he was 84. Hull, a Hall of Fame winger and 12-time All-Star, was known during his playing years as the Golden Jet for his speed and blonde hair. He had one of the most devastating slap shots in the NHL, once reportedly clocked at 118 miles per hour. Hull teamed with Stan Mikita to help the Blackhawks win the 1961 Stanley Cup, snapping a 23-year streak without a title. He played 15 seasons for Chicago, scoring 604 goals to become the team's career leader. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman called Hull, quote, a true superstar with gregarious personality, end quote. This is according to ESPN and the Washington Post. That's 10 things you need to know today for Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. Thanks for listening, and thanks for putting up with my stuttering. I like to get smarter. I like to keep up on current events. Stay tuned to What Makes You Smarter. Hashtag What Makes You Smarter. I'm going to learn some things. And while I have this broadcast software sitting in front of me, I might as well teach some things as well. I like to learn. I like to teach. And we can learn together. That's right. We're students. I might have some trivia. I might have some quotes. I might have whatever. Just things about history that we can learn from. So stay tuned. And hey, while you're hanging out, I'm probably going to put this on the same feed as the What Makes You Famous feed, which is my interview show with people just like you. Check that out. Hashtag What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere. If you'd like to be on that show, give me a call, 501-470-6386, or email keysdan@aol.com. That's it for this edition of What Makes You Smarter. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.